Hub OC was known as wildly crazy people that say yes to anything. And they were also having a crisis with the unhoused community. So they asked if we'd step into that. They gave us some land near the police department. And now we run the Hub Resource Center. That's open 6 days a week. We serve 200 daily human trafficking victims, foster kids that have aged out of the system, domestic violence victims, the unhoused. I mean, you name it.
Well, today's episode, we are focused on how do we serve the most vulnerable in our communities? How do we serve foster care, kids who've aged out of the system? How did we serve the little ones whose parents went to work during the pandemic and could barely make it to get food on the table? And then how did they educate their children? This gal today, Holiday Zimmerman, has quite the story of how God used all of her talents, along with her husband, Kyle, who's a pastor in Orange, California, and created this beautiful new nonprofit that you'll hear all about on this episode. So I'm so glad you joined. And I think it's also an episode that will encourage you. Maybe you're listening as an empty nester, not sure of the next steps in your calling. I just want to encourage you that God has a big plan for you. And maybe he hasn't revealed it yet, but he will. And I think you'll be encouraged by this episode. So thanks for being here. Well, today in the Generous Girls studio, you're going to get to meet Holiday Zimmerman. And Holiday runs the Hub OC, an incredible place and space that's meeting thousands of children in their lives and touching their parents as well. And Holiday's story is one that started with a dream that she had about how God might use her. And to look at it now, these many years later, to see how it's all played out is just so encouraging. And want to do a shout out to our friend Jenn Tarbell, who works with Generous Giving, who connected me with Holiday. Jenn works with Generous Giving and does the Journeys of Generosity, which are happening throughout the country. So super privileged to have you in the studio, Holiday, and I just want to give you a big welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored and humbled to be here.
Oh, well, you're just amazing. I mean, mom of 4 adult children, 2 boys, 2 girls, married to a pastor, got your master's in social work. And why don't we just dive right into your story that was super challenging, that involved your dad and depression that kind of came out of left field, something you hadn't dealt with before, and how that led to what you're doing today. It's a very redemptive story.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, my story started that way. So my name's Holiday, and with a name like that, you kind of have to resemble it a bit sometimes, and so grew up as a pastor's kid, and then became a pastor's wife. And when my dad passed away in 2017, it really just shattered me. And it was real traumatic. He was speaking on a Sunday, and then he went into a coma, and we didn't really get to say goodbye. And then it was so hard. And
so sorry.
Oh, thank you. And then we were in a transition of work. And so I just really fell into depression, just couldn't get out of bed, was really struggling. And I remember it was our first Christmas that we didn't have 100 services. We were on sabbatical, and we were actually in the snow. And I remember just staying extra in bed on Christmas Eve and just desperate for Jesus. And I fell back to sleep, and I had the wildest dream. I dreamt that I was in the stable with Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus. And it was the wildest experience. But what was most inspiring was just Mary. She was as bewildered as I was. These young women just kind of looking at each other like, how did we get this moment together? It was just so funny. And so that began this journey of just kind of pondering Mary and expectant. I felt like I asked God, why did I get this experience? And I felt like he was saying, I'm inviting you into something, Holiday. It's going to be a wild adventure, just like Mary.
Just like Mary, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So
And that was on Christmas Eve, too.
Christmas Eve. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you had this dream, you're in the stable, and now you're going forward. And then what happened?
Yeah. So then my husband got a call. His good friend, Pastor Jay Hewitt, who just recently passed away a few months ago, but he found out he had brain cancer. And so he asked if my husband would step in to be the pastor while he went through many surgeries. And so we did. We stepped in there, and that was in Orange, in this adorable church that he started in this packing house. I'm in it right now, hence the cute wallpaper.
So cute.
But it's so cute. And he really had this amazing community. And so we stepped in just to hold it while he recovered. And in that journey, I kind of took on the role of outreach, and we hosted a large event with all of the church to serve in the city. And one of the events took place at a youth center. It was called the Youth Centers of Orange, and it happened to have about 500 kids in the program. It was the only after school program and summer program for kids living below the poverty line, foster kids, kids in desperate situations. And so we did a fun camp day with them, and we just had a variety of activities. And the board of the Youth Centers of Orange approached me and asked if I could meet for a meeting after the event. And so I did. And they just shared that the Youth Centers of Orange was this precious city-run program. It was out of funding, that it was the only place for these kids to go, and that the board was literally carrying it on kind of their backs. And they randomly asked if I happened to have a nonprofit. Now, as I shared, my dad passed away, and unbeknownst to me, he had, for 2 years prior to him passing away, had been working on finalizing a nonprofit, and it was to do good. And that was handed to me in 2017. And so this was 2019 now. And they
And
asked
didn't
if I
it
had,
come in the mail like the
yeah,
day
it came
he
in the mail.
the day he passed away? Or,
Yes,
yes.
exactly. Exactly. And again, I had no desire to run a nonprofit. So I kind of just shelved it and was like, that's so neat. Thank you, God. Thank you, Dad. But no, thank you.
Yeah.
And then when they asked this, I really didn't know how to answer, because really didn't feel like I had a nonprofit. I just felt like I didn't know. But I did say, well, let me tell you the story. My dad passed away. I guess I have a nonprofit. And they said, great. Would you take over the Youth Centers of Orange and put it under your nonprofit? That was a wild journey in itself. But again, I'm pondering Mary, right? And trying to like be expectant and say yes. And one of the things as I was pondering Mary is there were two things that she valued. She lived in awe and wonder, which was why she said yes in the unexpected. And then also her last recorded words were, do whatever he tells you. And so I kind of felt like God was giving me this moment of like, Holiday, are you going to do whatever he tells you? And I'm like, okay. So with fear and trembling, I said yes. And the Youth Centers of Orange went under this precious nonprofit, and we named the nonprofit the Hub OC. And then also, so we took over the Youth Centers of Orange, and then 2 months later, COVID hit. So not only were these kids needing after school care, they didn't have access to school. They didn't have access to Wi-Fi because of the poverty they were living in. The parents were essential workers, meaning they were actually cleaning the hospitals, and they were cleaning the fire departments, and they were taking care of our basic needs. And so they had to make these choices of like, I leave my 5-year-old in kindergarten at home to learn school, which they have no access to Wi-Fi, or I feed my children. And so it became a crisis. The fire department, they reached out as well to us, the police department, because they're essential workers. They're like, we have no place for our kids. And all the community centers that we were supposed to host these kids had shut down. So the city called me and said, hey, I hear you're running the youth centers now. Do you know of a place that would host all these kids? And I was like, I know a guy. He's a pastor. Let me call and see if he'd be willing. I hung up the phone. I didn't even call my husband. I just knew he'd say yes. And I picked back up the phone. I said, Funny thing, he said yes.
And this was 500 children, right?
It
That
was
were going to now come
yeah,
into your space every day during the week.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just wild. I mean, they came in rotations. It was a wild journey. And so as they came in, it was this beautiful moment. It's emotional for me because my husband and I always had a passion that our church would be known as more of a community center and a church, but more like, oh, that's the place that's open all the time. And they say yes to
24/7.
Exactly. So we got that church. That was the beginning, and then it opened up a door for just this really fun relationship with our city. And they knew the Hub OC was known as wildly crazy people that say yes to anything, and they were also having a crisis with the unhoused community. So they asked if we'd step into that. They gave us some land near the police department, and now we run the Hub Resource Center. That's open 6 days a week. We serve 200 daily human trafficking victims, foster kids that have aged out of the system, domestic violence victims, the unhoused. I mean, you name it. And we just keep saying yes. And then from that, we opened up a little thrift store to kind of help support downtown Orange, which is so fun. And then now, yeah, and then now we have we're in the school district. So it's just been a wild adventure, Kim.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
How are you able, because thinking of the ages of your kids now, like 25 down to 20, and then going back, 6 years to when the pandemic, I mean, you were in the height of teens yourself at home. How did you juggle and balance all of that? Any tips for all of us listening where we feel like we're all juggling a lot, but anything that really helped you get through?
Yeah. I heard a great quote. This professor at Vanguard, he said that a lot of times the students will ask him, give him prayer requests, and the one he will not pray for is when they say, "How help me manage time?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not praying for that." He's like, "You can't manage time. Time is not manageable. It just ticks away." Tick. So I guess I would answer that with our first priority are, obviously my husband and then our kids. And so we just kind of held to that, that we would say yes to anything with the kids and yes to each other. And the hub just happened to be the third thing. And it just kind of fit in. And when it didn't, it didn't,
Right.
but the kids joined us in efforts of serving, but mostly it kind of evolved. So it was evolving during their crazy time as well. So it was always third place though.
Still, that is incredible. And then fast forward now, your son is married and his wife. Share how they are involved.
Yeah, so that's been a wild journey. So we have 3 weddings in 8 months. So my daughter got married in December, my son got married in November, and then my other son's getting married in a month in June. So it's been wild.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
So fun. But my son married the most amazing girl, and she, you talked about Jenn Tarbell. She went to one of Jenn's generous, the JOTS,
Journey of Generosity.
Journey of Generosity conference. And out of that, she had a vision. She's working with my son in the high school ministry, and the Gen Z, generation that she's working with is just known as the most anxious generation. They're known as the most, depressed, that, they're living in this AI generation. They're kind of feel purposeless and scared. And she was like, I want to change that. I want to change that whole thing. And she felt like God called her to call the next generation the generous generation. And so we have a program, like I said, the Hub has a program ages, elementary school, but they just started a program in junior highs and high schools, and it's been well received. There's 4 high schools and 2 junior highs that have said, please help us with this next generation. Because I think as teachers, as even people my age, those that are teaching, this is the one generation they're really going, I literally don't identify. I don't know what it was like to live on a phone. I don't know what it was like with Instagram and social media. And so they're desperate for help. And they found, studies are showing that when kids are generous, that depression changes like 60% and anxiety goes away. I think it was like almost by 30%, like these crazy numbers. And it's biblical, right? Like when we are out
Yeah.
of ourselves and we're not self-focused, we're just, thinking about others. So they're finding that. So they're asked to go into the public schools to teach generosity. Is that wild?
That's so wild.
Wild.
So wild.
So yeah.
And how are they doing that when they go in? Is it like they're kind of putting them in small groups and having them answer questions, or what's the format?
Yeah. So some of the principals have asked them to run a club, and then some high school students kind of join the efforts and they start a club, but that's at lunchtime. And then a couple of the schools have asked them to run a class to teach generosity during the school time and to teach a class. So they're writing curriculum as we speak with like wise people coming alongside them. So yeah, it's going to start in the fall. So they're kind of preparing the kids now. And then this summer, they're going to do a bunch of projects and then they're going to start in the fall. So
wonderful. That's just so exciting. I love to see how your gifts professionally and then your own calling have merged into this role. And also, as you keep adding a thrift store and a new resource center, and your kids are that much older and you have a little bit more margin, especially once they're all married or three of them are married, you'll be able to you'll even have a little more time on your hands. But how God kind of brings those opportunities where it feels almost impossible, but then somehow, like you said, it just kind of fits together. You look back and you go, I really don't know how we did that, but it worked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was all in phases, and it's kind of been a wild journey of just total trust. I heard this great quote again. This professor just kind of visited us, and it says, "Sometimes we have to let our plans get interrupted so that heaven can crash in." And
that's great.
I just love that. I thought, like, all miracles happened in interruptions. They weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't when we had a plan for it. So.
I mean, that's so true too. When, someone thinks, okay, our family's complete. And then 10 years later, who comes crashing in? And then the family could never imagine life without that little one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
What else would you say to everyone listening in terms of, maybe someone is at the launching the kids to college, empty nester, new season, lost themselves in the process of raising kids, don't know which way to turn, what to do next. What would you say about kind of the role that generosity plays in figuring out someone's calling? And I'm talking not just money, but time, talents, treasure, personality.
Yeah. Well, I had to learn myself. I mean, as a woman, maybe not all women reflect on this, but for me, I can be controlling and a bit like want things to go my way. Like I have my agenda and I'm like, this is what I want, and I mostly want God to fit into my agenda. I don't know. That's just me, and just think, well, this is how it should be. Or if something's stressing me out, I'm like, God, I'll tell you exactly how to fix it, and that would be great. And what I
laughs.
And what I've found in this whole marriage journey is that, really one of the fun stories is the wedding at Cana, right? And it's the very first miracle. And here she is at this wedding, and she's like, Jesus, there's no more wine. And she doesn't tell him how to fix it. She just is like, Jesus, like, there's no more wine. And so just to answer your question, I feel like most of the time Mary just presents the problem. She doesn't tell God how to fix it. And so I guess in that question you asked about how to live in the next stage, right? With empty nesting, it's more just like living in awe and wonder, and allowing God to just let heaven crash in each day. Like, okay, Jesus, like I'm going to just surrender it all to you, like whatever
every minute,
every second. Yeah. And just like let heaven crash in. And it might be in the mundane of, like you said, it could be a mom with a little one who's like son, your daughter just won't get in the car, will not be buckled in the car seat. Right. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna let heaven crash in. I'm just gonna take this moment
Yes.
to thank him for my kid that
Right,
allowed.
right.
And then in the empty nester, right? It's like, okay, like I wasn't expecting to feel this sad or this lonely or whatever it might be, but I'm gonna let you crash in here, Lord. Like, what do you
Mhm.
want me to do in this
In this
space,
season.
in this
Mhm.
season? Like, how can I
Mhm.
use all these things I've learned? But also like feel the feels of the pain and the journey and allow God to meet you in that too. So
Yeah.
those are just a few things I'm trying to do.
No, really good. Really good. How did you feel like you were able to navigate yourself through that depression
Yeah.
and come out on the other side?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, depression is so real. I think for me, it was spending time with Jesus, like in desperation. I would cry out to the Lord nonstop and just tell him everything. Like I was so desperate for him. And I would just like, if something was in my path, like if a friend asked to go to lunch, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do that. Like, even though I
Mhm.
didn't want to, I would force myself to
Get
because
out.
maybe,
Mhm.
yeah, because I was like, maybe
Mhm.
God has something for me, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and so I was just, I think, clinging to Jesus, like just clinging to every Bible verse, like the Bible never has been so real to me, especially during that time. It came full color. It was just like his words were everything. It was the only book that really was helping me at
Mhm.
the time, like just his words. So
Mhm.
clinging to him, like just with every thing I
Fiber.
had.
Mhm.
Yes, yes,
Yes. No, totally. Well, it's really life is a journey. It's
ah,
lots of hills, lots of valleys.
yes,
God gives us those people to come alongside us. Sometimes, when you had talked about at the beginning, in the depression and losing your dad, and in our pre-conversation, you felt such loneliness. Sometimes the journey can be really lonely. Sometimes all of a sudden, God, heaven crashes in, like you said, you have a dream, and all of a sudden things are looking different. But I don't know, just encouragement for anyone listening. If you're in a tough season, God sees you. You're not alone. And there are people that can be there to support you, whether it's your local church or counselor or a spiritual director, a best
yes.
friend. Don't try to, do it
No,
alone. But I do love the redemptive part when we can look back and see, here we are in 2026 and this happened to you in 2020 and even before
yeah,
that 2017 with your dad, but looking at how God, what the pieces of the puzzle that he's put together, and you and your husband have said yes. And so that's, I think, such a great takeaway from today's episode is saying yes, even when it feels scary, even when we don't know what is around the corner, but God knows. And if he's putting us in that place and he's leading us to do something, he will provide. And, now with all the things, all the ripples from you all saying yes, all the lives changed in affluent Orange County. And yet so many people struggling, so many people below the poverty line. And I can't imagine if your offering didn't exist and how those people would be struggling. So I'm so grateful for you and your husband saying yes.
thank you. It's humbling. It's humbling.
Oh, no, it's wonderful to hear. Okay, so just speaking of spending time with God and Jesus, what I always want to make sure I give the guest a chance to share favorite Bible verse, current book you're reading, and then
Yeah,
just for fun, any recent bargain you want to share.
yes, yes. Well, the verse that sustained me through all of it is Romans 8:28. That he can do, um, you know, he works all things out for the good of those who love him. And I think for me, I cling to that still, that no
Mhm.
matter what comes my way, he's going to work it out for good.
Yeah.
So that's Romans 8:28. And then Gene Edwards, right now, he wrote a book called The Tale of Three Kings, which is amazing. But I'm reading another book of his called The Stories I Love to Tell. So I just bought
Mm.
it, but I read the first story and it was amazing. So
Sounds like a fun new author. I haven't heard of Gene Edwards.
Yes. Oh, so good. So
Okay.
good. And then bargain. I mean, I have to just give a little plug to Full Circle Thrift Store, right? The best bargains ever. I'm a thrifter, so I love thrifting, finding things, but also love our little downtown Orange has so many cute thrift stores.
So cute.
That's where I find my bargains.
That is a great tip. Oh, well, it's been wonderful having you on the show, and I can't wait to continue to follow your journey. If anyone listening wants to visit the little darling shops in the Circle of Orange, and maybe you'll run into Holiday. So thanks for being on the show, and God bless you on your journey.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Generous Girl podcast. We're so glad that you're here. And if you know of someone that you think needs to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to us. New episodes are released every other week, and you can follow us on YouTube and on all platforms. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.